This nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you. Belongs to you. Because it was the hard-working patriots like you who built this country, and tomorrow it is the hard-working patriots like you who are going to save our country.
I don't know if you guys in the UK understand how sad it is for us in Canada and in the United States to watch what you're doing to yourself. I mean, the UK is a great country. When I go there, I go to Oxford, I go to Cambridge, to these, remarkable places in London, see your unbelievable deep history, understand how much the world owes the UK in terms of, say, the establishment of common law and decent government everywhere, including places like India. We owe the UK such an immense debt. And to watch you guys like spiral yourselves into the ground for this idiot, weak political correctness that's gone so far that you can allow your working class women to be en masse sadistically and say nothing about it. We all pray, hope and pray here in Canada and the US that you get your act together and grow some spine again and put your damn country back together and stand up to these bloody psychopathic bullies and the woke green mob, because it would be a dreadful shame to lose you.
Yo, what's going on, guys? We're back again, another video, another stream. Today we're gonna be discussing, what's up, Grand Designs? Enjoy it. Thanks for being back again. This time I'm not doing face cam. I do have a pink eye, but yeah, as you can tell by the stream title, we're gonna be talking about politics and religious discussion with my guest speaker. Grand Designs, I know you wanted to watch that video, and we're just going to do that tomorrow because I got her on, and she's like a special guest. It's a once in a blue moon type of guest, if that makes sense. But yeah, if you have any questions for her, you can type it in chat, and I'm sure she'll be down to answer. But yeah, let's make this full screen. So you want to introduce yourself to the people watching?
Yeah, hi, I'm Yami. I'm a friend, otherwise a guest speaker. And yeah, I just have a few ideas on religion and politics, but nothing crazy.
Okay, Grand Design says, I just found an hour ago the first part of the video we wanted to watch, and would end up watching the full video in February 2nd at 6 p.m. Okay, bro, yeah, if you want, tomorrow I'll be live again so we can watch that together. Just send in the link. 6 p.m. tomorrow, sure. 6 p.m. your time or my time. We can watch that. Sounds good, man. Just type it in chat. But yeah, you wanna I can send the link for them now. Okay, sure. Just type the link in. I can always go back to the streams and then collect the links. I won't copy it in right now though. But okay. But Grand Designs, do you have any questions to start off the show with anything political or religious that she might be able to talk about? Uh, when it comes to politics, where would you say you're most like where you're most advanced in? Like what country specifically? What's your area of
Um,
expertise?
I'd say more so Southern Africa, just because that's kind of where I'm schooling.
Okay.
Um,
I mean,
that's
he
where I'm
asked,
from.
does she support unrestricted access to abortion?
I don't.
Why?
I don't. I think the idea of like unrestricted anything within like the medical field is really risky because it takes away a lot of, I think, accountability when it comes to such really big procedures like that.
Okay.
Abortion is a really sensitive topic because whether it's ranging from, the outcome of sexual assault to, a teen pregnancy or, anything in between, I think when there is restriction, it puts more weight on one scale rather than the other. But without restriction, it just kind of makes it, a dental visit. Like it's not, I think there's a lot more weight to it than that.
Hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
He says, I think women should have no restrictions about abortion. What's your response to that?
I like the idea that, I like that we're putting the choice within women's ballpark. I like that idea. Definitely when it comes to who should decide these laws, the restrictions, or the decisions, it should be definitely up to women. But I think it depends because in different, I'd like to say like different cultures, the way abortion is viewed is very different, right? So not all over the world will it be, I think, abused and unrestricted like abortion pass. But I think some places more than others, there's definitely a fear that it'll become, yeah.
But doesn't that go like directly against religion? Because I mean, abortion, it's a conflict. It conflicts with it, right? Because it's the murder of a kid. He
It
says,
definitely does.
Grand Designer just said, the cultures who want to restrict it are wrong. It is their body. But yeah, I mean, what are your
Mm.
thoughts on everything said?
Well,
Because I mean, you are
the,
religious.
I
Um,
think this discussion, so whenever it comes to this discussion, we need to keep in mind like the different sides of the argument. Like, I am religious. So on paper and just purely it's wrong. Like abortion shouldn't even be considered. And that's gonna stir up a lot of debate and like, conflict. So like I'm open to having the discussion of the different sides to why abortion should be considered. But I think plainly, if we were gonna have a more of an objective conversation about abortion, it's that nothing should be unrestricted. I don't think when it comes to especially laws to that extent, when you take away the element of restriction, it's it's almost now you can talk about access to firearms. If you
hmm,
take away restriction on that completely and say, yeah, we will have the right to protect ourselves, then what's the outcome of that going to be? You just hand one to anyone who wants one. Like they are going to be negative consequences behind non-restrictions.
that makes sense. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
agree with that. I think that at some point, the law has to, you know, he says, I support free access to guns.
It's an
Grand Designer,
interesting
why do you support free access to guns? Free access, as in, so basically like the
free
US, where you can
free
buy them.
access.
right?
Oh, okay, okay.
Or I mean, the U.S. is still somewhat restricted though, right? You have to have a firearms license and whatnot.
Yeah, certain states I
Okay,
think are
he's
more
saying
restricted than others.
unrestricted. So what
Mm,
do you mean by that? What, anyone can just go and get a gun, or they have to have like a firearms license and whatnot? You know what I mean? But no, I think I think at some point the law has to go over religion. I think that if we
yeah,
went by religious laws and still followed them, I don't think societies can work and function in that manner because there's just
I'm
too
not gonna.
diverse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to that. I'm not gonna go as far as to say like, the laws or politics within Southern Africa are better than the Western world because there are definitely different elements that we need to work on ourselves. But I think the whole idea of just um, the Western, like politics at least, having really secular approaches to different laws and different decisions on that scale, like you can compare that to many other cultures, and there are really big differences in terms of, I mean, access to firearms, the healthcare system, this same healthcare system. Like, if we made access to abortion, we're talking about like Europe and America right now, right?
Yeah.
If we made access to abortion like without restriction, now you'd have to raise the question: what about like the extreme prices and limits on just the basic healthcare system? That access to abortion, like, would it even be affordable? Because now, so what's the point? Like, there are a lot of other things to consider.
Yeah, I mean, he said religious laws are not superior to laws encouraging pro-social behavior. So
What does he mean by that?
I think
Pro-social behavior.
I think he's meaning like abortion, for example, is a pro-social behavior where it's like society would be affected negatively
Mm,
if religious laws were in place. Like if a woman were, to get, we can't say, so let's just say raped. If a woman were to get raped, right, and
mm,
she wanted to have an abortion and she couldn't get one because of religious laws, I think that would be anti-social behavior. Not really anti-social, but it would be anti. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be a good decision basically for the woman, right? Or the kid,
mm.
raising the kid in a single family household then, because the guy would probably get put in jail. It would just be a net negative for society. You get what I mean?
I mean, yeah, abortion, there's a reason it's such a controversial topic in so many places because there are different things to consider. But, you
Yeah,
know, it is hopeful to say this. Maybe it's not, um, maybe that's why, like in politics, it's not the immediate route taken. But there are many other resources that can be provided, like in the case of sexual assault. Like, instead of investing so much in abortion clinics, which, like I said, are already then how accessible really are they,
yeah,
considering how expensive the healthcare system is in these countries? Like, what about investing in social services and what are they called? Just adoptive centers, like, child protective services, like maybe expanding that service more.
yeah. That makes sense.
I mean, if you
No,
look at if you look
I
at
agree with you.
if you look at Japan, for example, um, the healthcare system actively supports women during pregnancy and right after childbirth. Like the government even provides, what are they called? Stay in, I believe, stay in nurses to
Hmm.
support women, like for the first few weeks after postpartum. So there are placements that the government can add for these kinds of services, but we're only ever looking at the extreme ends of, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get what you mean. I think that it's a very yeah, it's one of the most difficult topics to speak about and the most
yeah,
discussed topics. I mean, in U.S. politics specifically, even this election, I think the two major topics that were being talked about were immigration
mm,
and abortion. And Kamala had
yeah,
Trump on abortion, and Trump had Kamala on immigration specifically. And
yeah,
yeah, I hold the whole argument against Trump. I mean, he's just delegating it to the states for the most part. So I mean, you can still get an abortion in the U.S. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean,
I
it's a
think I
difficult
do
argument
understand. Yeah,
because
I do understand, especially, at times when it becomes a bit like of an emotional debate, right? We have to also keep that in mind. Like, it is a very sensitive topic. I think a lot of people, and I'd like to say, I think a lot of the uninformed debates, that are just, yeah, women's rights, but not so much on the facts of abortion, they come mostly from just a movement towards having freedom over like women's choice in women's bodies. Like, I understand that movement. That needs to be something that's definitely encouraged more. But whether
yeah.
that's taken specifically through the route of abortion, I'm not so sure about. Like, there are definitely other ways
I mean,
to.
we could also make the argument that I think like a lot of women put themselves in situations, in bad situations in which they have to get an abortion. You know
Careful.
what I mean?
Careful
I
now.
mean, it's true though. It's true though because yeah,
Like,
I
what would you
mean,
say an example
like
of that is?
okay, an example of that would be like you know, okay, smashing a bunch of guys, right? Or smashing a guy without a condom that they don't actually like. You know what I mean? Or that they don't see a long-term future with. And in
Mm,
doing so, I mean, that's a bad decision, right? And then they get an abortion and
mm,
it's like, they arguably, I mean, depends on the weeks and I mean, I think in the US they said 6 to 8 weeks until the baby's
yeah.
considered a live child. I think that's what most people agreed with. But yeah, let's say it goes over
It's
that.
until a heartbeat's detected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
some
mean,
people
I
say
think
like
it
a
would be
heartbeat.
actually
Some people
interesting.
say it's like till the brain functions. Like it's hard to determine
Mm.
like when it's actually living. You know what I mean?
It would be really interesting to actually, I
Then men.
mean, I don't know if there are statistics on this kind of thing, but like to compare, the amount of medically like documented abortions now versus like many, many years ago. But I'd say, yeah, there's been
Yeah.
a big change in hookup culture, but there's always been the need for, or at least the desire for abortion throughout
Haman
history, whether
Karatella
that's,
said two bums on stream. What do you have to say to that?
yeah, hi, man. Tell him to hop on the stream then. Why is
Yeah,
he
yeah,
hiding?
yeah. Why are you hiding? Why are you hiding? You can join, bro. Um.
Nah, if Amon joins and people are just gonna start fighting. He can
mm,
watch.
Okay, okay. But yeah, no, I agree with you. But I think it goes back to yeah, just bad decisions by because I mean a lot of the time I think most abortions come from very just bad decisions, right? For the most part.
I'm not sure about that though.
Okay, tell me
Because you
like
have
tell
to
me
keep in mind.
like the general average abortion. It's probably from a hookup, right?
I'm not 100% sure actually. I mean, I know for a fact
Most
that like
probably. Most probably.
victims of sexual assault, like depending on how advanced the healthcare system is, when you go through that process in a hospital, like they definitely go to the means of, preventing any potential pregnancies if that's not what the patient wants. But then again, right, that depends on two factors: how advanced is the medical system, and then as well, does this person even does this person even go to report what's happened to them? Most of the time, you have to keep in mind, especially all over the world, not just in the Western world, but a lot of people can't report when this has happened. And then you don't know. Like, you just see some chick pregnant. You don't know what the circumstances been. So
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
easy to say it's just been a hookup, right?
No, no, but I would say like okay, but you like okay, if you were thinking logically, right? If you were thinking logically and like girls and
Mm-hmm.
you know how they are, on average, don't you think most abortions would come from like a hookup or like, something silly? They don't come from grape or, all these or the other topics. I feel like that's more a
Mm-hmm.
minority. I feel like most abortions are from a random hookup or like or she had sex without a condom and she regrets it and then you know what I mean?
I can't say women as a whole, right? Because depending on different stages of life, like I said, I think it makes more sense to split it up per demographic. If you're saying like our our age group, if you're looking at abortions within, anywhere between 18 years old to like 22 years old, then maybe
Yeah.
it is because of that reason. But like if you're looking at now women who are 30s and older,
Yeah, but why
the
would they even get an abortion though? Because I mean, okay, not saying it like that, but the chance of giving birth at like after the age of 40 is so low, right? So low, like
yeah,
you
but not
probably.
everybody wants to have children, just
Yeah,
because
but
we
the
can doesn't mean we
probability is
always
already
want to.
so low. Like, there's no point of getting an abortion. I mean, most of your eggs are gone by the age of 50, if I'm not wrong, right? Or if not all of them. And most of them are
Yeah,
gone
I
by
mean, but
40.
they're different demographics, right? Like the body's consistently changed between teenagehood to 20s to 30s to 40s to 50s. Those are all different age groups, all of which, sexual assault or a hookup can happen. Where now, depending on their economical, like depending on what their economical circumstance
Yeah.
is, whether this
So,
person is in a position like in their career where they can have children, their
are
religious
abortions, are
circumstances.
they for free? I'm not sure. So, like, when you get an abortion, you get it for free, right?
I'm actually not sure. I doubt it. How could
Yeah,
it be for
okay.
free? I mean, like, then it would be way more accessible, right?
Yeah, to be fair, it would be.
Any procedure to
Hmm.
that extent, it has to be a Norwegian level healthcare system to be free, but I doubt it is.
But I think most people who get abortions, they're usually of a lower economical status, right? Because they usually have more sex without contraception, if I'm not wrong.
Well, depends. When you're saying lower economical
Like, I mean,
status, like, what are you talking about?
like, I mean, in the more poorer people.
Well, do you think poor people can afford abortions?
I mean, I don't know, like, how expensive they are, but like,
I mean, this is something we could search
usually,
up, but
no, typically because I think they're less educated for the most
mm,
part, and then because of that, I mean, I feel like everyone's educated on contraception now, but they just have more sex without contraception. That's why you even look at like poorer societies in any country, and they usually have more kids. Like, poor people have more kids than rich people, right?
but that's not always no. But there, there is actually a justifiable reason behind that in many circumstances, right? In many, like here in Southern Africa, right? I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
speak specifically about Malawi. In the rural areas, a lot of women have a lot of children to help them in sustaining a household, right? A lot of people are self-sufficient farmers, right? So
Yeah.
like, whatever they're doing in terms of the food is used to support their family economically or just to provide food for their family. They need help in that labor force. So when you have 10 kids, all of them are working in the market and the farm with you, like that is a reason behind it in many cases. Other times it's just a culture thing to have many children. It's not
Yeah.
always the result, of just
Okay.
contraception. Yeah, it
Grand
just
Design
depends.
sent a YouTube video in the chat. He's saying, and he's asking. He said, "Ask if she wants to react. Do you want to react to the YouTube video, or do you want to just keep it on the call?"
We can just keep it on the call.
Okay, okay, okay. I mean, if Grand Design, if you want to explain what the video is, then
Yeah, it might be a bit easier.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, it's too difficult to share the screen and do whatnot. Or like, yeah. But no, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think abortion. The reason why Kamala didn't win was because I mean, abortion's not like a big significant issue right now, but people try and make it super big because, with the whole feminist movement and women's rights movement and whatnot. And the reason Trump won was because of
Yeah.
foreign conflicts, right? There's more important things in the world than just your abortion policies. I mean, the world's literally, arguably, I mean, it's the closest we've ever been to World War III, right? I mean, there's major things that need to be resolved in the
Mm.
country, and world conflicts that need to be
Yeah,
resolved. And people didn't think Kamala was fit for it. So I think abortion,
I agree on
it's
a
taken too
global scale.
seriously.
There are a
Yeah,
lot of other pressing matters. There's still like modern slavery. There's a lot of things going on right now that are just not even addressed, whether they're taboo or just never addressed. So yeah, I think putting so much weight on what I believe to be a really individualistic, topic. Abortion is something, yes, it can affect a state, like on a group scale, but it's not something that can passing one law move will solve a whole issue that's affecting multiple people at one point. So yeah, I agree. It's not the most pressing matter, but it does hold a lot of weight though in the long run
Okay, I mean, Grand
because it
Design
has a lot
has
of implications.
he sent a link in chat, and he said I should just read it, and it's about the video. So I'll read it out for you quickly. Um, what actually happens when a country bans abortion? So it's an article. He says, as lawmakers in Alabama passed a bill that would outlaw in the U.S. state entirely, protesters outside the statehood wore blood red robes. Okay. In 1996, the leader of Romania, Nicolae Ceausescu, whatever, outlawed access to abortion and contraception in a bid to boost the country's population. In the short term, it worked, and the year after it was enacted, the average number of children born to Romanian women jumped from 1.9 to 3.7. But birth rates
Mm.
quickly fell again as women found ways around the ban. Wealthy urban women were sometimes able to bribe doctors to perform abortions, and they had contraceptive IUDs smuggled in from Germany. I feel like this is a similar topic to like prohibition. I don't know if you're aware of prohibition. Um,
No.
well, it's basically in I think the early 1800s, maybe 1900s, women started protesting because basically they were getting beat by their men, and the reason they were getting beat by their men was because their men would go out, they would drink a lot of alcohol, and then they would come home and they would beat their wives. And so what women did is they
Wow.
all came together and they went on a whole protest to ban alcohol. So in the US, because of this large protest,
Really?
they banned alcohol in the US. And what happened is people just started using massive underground markets. So people were selling alcohol on, like,
Mm.
on the side, and people were buying it from all these other places. And I think the problem stopped. I mean, the problem didn't really get solved. Like, it stopped at the beginning for a short period of time, but then once people found out the ways to buy the alcohol, and people found out
Mm.
ways to sell the alcohol, like
Yeah, it does
in the
sound really
underground
similar to
market.
that.
Yeah, they started doing it, and eventually just got unbanned. And I think it's the same with like gun laws, right? I feel like if we ban guns, it's like the criminals, they don't buy the guns legally anyway. They buy them from the
Mm.
underground market. You know what I mean?
There's always a solution. I think it's like this is the problem. I think it's trying to cover up greater problems on the surface level, right? You're just trying to cap something without addressing the root cause. Because when you're reading about what happened in I think 1978, that made me think about like if you're trying to encourage a growing population, which is exactly happening in Japan right now, you can either take it from the one end of banning contraception, which you know the government could have had that approach, or you can now address it more on a root level and say instead we're going to provide more support, financially in the healthcare system and at home to encourage you to want to have more children, and that's what they're doing. So I think that's why I said like these really extreme approaches to abortion, or in that case just contraception, like I don't think they're addressed the right way.
Yeah, yeah. And I think even if they did
I
ban
mean, me
abortion,
personally, if I'm
yeah.
gonna go about and try and encourage someone to have a kid, like am I gonna hold them at the neck and say have a kid, or am I gonna give them the means that'll allow them to do that?
Yeah, and I think this is the problem with politics. I think people are like too one-sided. Like they can be middle
Exactly.
ground. Like it's not like, oh, if you're Republican, you have to be completely anti-abortion. You can see
Mm,
cases where, okay, in this situation, sure, you know what, they might need it. And the Democrats may also see, okay, I don't want to murder my kids. It shouldn't be allowed, let's say, after 3 months of pregnancy, right? They shouldn't be
mm,
allowed to take an abortion. But it's just two extremes, you know what I mean? There needs to be somewhat of
Yeah.
like a middle ground and like somewhat of a solution.
I
But
mean, I think the problem is we go into a lot of these discussions with our own opinions like so firmly, like, with our
yeah,
opinions
yeah,
so firmly placed that we don't even hear the other side.
we speak to speak.
We're just kind of, yeah, we're just waiting to speak. Like, we're not
Yeah, yeah,
really listening. And that's a problem.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's kind of like defending our own ego, one would say.
Mm.
I think it's silly. I think it's silly. But you know what? I think something that's been going around a lot recently throughout most of Europe and throughout most of the US has been immigration. I mean, what are your thoughts on
Mm.
immigration?
What are my thoughts?
Yeah, because I mean, it's been a major topic. I mean, you got the AFD in Germany, you got reform coming up in the UK, you got obviously Trump winning in
Yeah.
the US, and I think immigration played a huge part in all of these different political institutions or parties growing so majorly.
Yeah, immigration is really a hard one. I think the problem is we look at it as such a we look at it with such a blanket lens. This is a whole of immigration when I think the type of immigration in these different areas, the different causes is really different. I know that like the immigration crisis in the UK specifically is very different to that. Yeah, there's similarities, but they are different to the ones in the US.
Hmm.
So I think the problem is a lot of people are coming at this topic with just one way to categorize it all, which I don't think is possible. And then we end up coming up with really ill-informed, opinions.
Yeah.
I
No, no,
think,
I get you there.
uh, yeah, I just
Grand
mean,
Design said the kid is not murdered. Woman protects her interests, her body, career, and autonomy over her health, body, and career.
what do you mean the,
Jono5431 says reactor flight. Just shut up, man. Anyway, Grand Designs and Choice said the kid is not murdered. Woman protects her interests, her body and career, and autonomy over her health. Autonomy is like freedom.
yeah, I understand, but what do you mean the kid is not murdered? Are we still talking about
Yeah, he's talking about
abortion right now?
abortion. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hmm. I mean, look, I'm gonna revert back to my, just my side of things being a religious person. I think the problem with unrestricted abortion or just encouraging the concept of abortion is without like unknowingly we're going to encourage a lot of other movements that you know in the long term. I'm going to say this now. I don't know if this user is religious or not,
Yeah.
but a lot of the principles and the values that are reinstated throughout the Bible are there because they're looking out for a growing civilization in the long run, right? That
Hmm.
when we
Makes
look at
sense.
situations such as LGBTQ movement, LGBTQ plus movement, or abortion, or access to firearms, that from a really close up lens, we don't see potential consequences in the future. When you look at that on a long scale, there are huge implications on the development of civilization. I know a lot of people who are American who have lived in America for 20 plus years who are moving out of the US and saying, no, just the way the culture has developed in the past 2 decades or so has changed so drastically. And I think it's because a lot of these movements that we're seeing, yeah, as an individual, it promotes my my freedom of choice. But sometimes, whether from a religious point or non-religious point, sometimes we're restricted from our own freedom for our own protection, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no. I understand that. I understand that. That's a good point. And yeah, no, I just want to touch back to immigration here because I want to give my thoughts personally. I think that
Yeah, yeah.
the reason why immigration has become such a major topic. By the way, have you realized that it's become such a big thing? Like you've seen it. It's kind of
Yeah.
everywhere, right?
Yeah, of course. It's
Yeah,
hard
like
to ignore.
everyone's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to ignore. I think the reason it's become so big is because I think it's so mass. The amount of immigrants coming in are just there's way too many basically. In the U.S. under
There is a
Biden, I
lot.
think there was 10 million that came in, and
Hmm.
I think it gets to a point where it's like, okay, how is this affecting our culture? And it's like, okay, we need to preserve our culture, and
Mm. But when you say that, I find that interesting. What do you mean by preserve our culture?
I mean that okay, I mean that okay. So when I talk about the West specifically, it was built by
Mm.
even I will say this, right? It was built by uh, the white man and white people, right? And they have a specific culture, whether that be, you know, um,
And let me ask you something, not to cut you off,
yeah,
right? But you're talking now about like just colonial history in the Western world, right?
yeah.
What would you say is the basis behind that culture? Like the underlying like platform.
What do you mean the
It
underlying
was
platform?
always you're saying in general, you're saying white. You're not specifying like a specific ethnicity or anything, but just
Yeah,
would you say it was religion, no?
I mean the native people of the country, not
Yeah.
really white. But I mean in England, for example, it was a white person. Yeah, it was the white people.
Yeah. And I the basis of a lot of English culture, right? At least I'd say Western Europe, Eastern Europe was religion, at least the platform of it, right?
Yeah,
And that same religion then through colonization, like on a massive scale, spread to a lot of these same a lot of these same countries that are now moving back into let's like focus on Europe. So I think like when we're talking about preserving culture, obviously there are a lot of other elements to culture, but you're kind of
no, but like even if we look at the pros and cons of immigration, I mean, really, what are the pros and what are the cons? Try list them?
okay. I'd say one pro. I mean, this is subjective to the scale because I do agree, like the scale at which it's happening affects everything. But it's it's more encouraging on the workforce. I think just the culture behind the workforce, and I'm specifying by the culture, not necessarily what happens in the economy. But like a lot of people, and this is a very big thing, specifically in South Africa. A lot of xenophobia originates from this of like foreigners coming in and just because of drive, maybe circumstance, I mean like whatever circumstance they're in that they need to work, take up job opportunities from locals, and then you know
Yeah.
that created a lot of animosity. But if we shifted our mindset to using that as encouragement, motivation, that as a culture, within the workforce, we're all pushing each other, like the standard continues to increase.
No, no, I can understand that, but I mean in the sense of like, I'm talking more so like illegal immigration. When I say 10 million immigrants came into the country, I'm talking illegal immigrants came into the country. And there's really no
Mm.
pros when it comes to illegal immigration, you know. Um, I mean,
Mm.
this is what people always say. They're like, "Oh, yeah, we love the food." You know what I mean? "Oh, yeah, have you tried Mexican food? Have you tried the falafels, the Turkish falafels? Have you tried?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get like an Albert Einstein quote in there or something. But
What?
because Albert Einstein was an immigrant, right? But
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay,
but
yeah, I see where you're going with this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, when we look at the cons, I mean, there's just too many. There's crime, there's low IQ, there's someone's best viewers, whatever, man. Then there's like there's no culture, there's no cultural dynamic. It just kind of mixes. It creates I don't know what the word is, but differences in society practically, right? And
But
I
honestly,
don't think society can function with that many differences. I think throughout time, whether it's in Africa like Congo or even during the what's Rwandanese war, Rwanda war or genocide, Rwandan
the
genocide.
Rwandan genocide, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was two different tribes with two different cultures or perspectives that were fought. And
Yeah, of course.
I think it always
But that
dissolves
was on an
down.
internal scale. That was within, that was internally, that led way back to like different tribal
I understand,
territories, all of those
but what
things.
I'm saying is there's something special about homogeneity,
Mm,
and I think that when we look back at any culture, even okay, let's say the West was completely white, right? Let's say the US was
mm.
completely white and everyone was Christian. There would still be wars. Then new conflicts would start between the North and the South, or between Catholics and Protestants. You know what I mean? It just diverts down and down and down
I do
until
understand that. Yeah,
you get what I
I
mean.
do understand. When you definitely look at like, um, now I'm not trying to make this like way too abstract, but like when you look at just our genealogy, right? There are
Hmm.
definitely there are definitely differences between cultures, just, language as well, and, whether that's religion on a conscious or unconscious level. There are definitely differences that, without being recognized, they can clash, and those are where problems are formed. But
Yeah, yeah. But
I
when
just,
it
I
comes to
find it crazy.
differences, no, what I was just touching on, just sorry to interrupt you, but I was gonna say
Yeah, no,
that
it's okay.
uh specifically when you get people who are completely different, they don't speak the same language, they don't look the same, they don't have
Yeah.
the same culture, they're coming here illegally, so they've already broken the law, right? By literally coming in the country illegally, that's breaking the law. I mean, why would you want people like that in your country? And then additionally, to add on to that, these people who come in illegally to work in a country, you need like in the UK, it's called a not an NHS national insurance number, and you only get that through either visa, like visa not conscription, but like at the visa board at the visa place where they give it to you, or if you're a citizen of the country, you'll get a national insurance number. The people who come in illegally, they don't have any of this. So what they do is they either go into drugs, they become pimps, the women become prostitutes, or
Mm.
they've opened up those small like taco shops on the side of the road, but they're not paying for the land. So if they get caught, they don't really have a license to sell on the street. They can just get put in jail. So yeah, usually they do revolt to like these dirtier crimes like stealing, drugs, and all this other stuff, which again is just a net negative for society. And they're usually not smart for the most part, so they don't really add anything. So I mean, there's no
Well,
real, yeah.
I mean, this is where I disagree with you, right? Like, for starters, um, I'm trying to remember a really interesting analogy someone explained. Like, it's let me remember this correctly. Okay, for your first issue on like, prostitution and you know, that whole sector of things,
Yeah.
are you gonna blame? Okay, if you're sitting with a healthcare issue, you've got diabetes, you're obese, your health is in serious, like, critical condition,
Hmm.
and you've been a frequent customer of McDonald's, are you going to sue McDonald's and attack them for what they've done to you, or are you the cause of that problem? Now, I
Wait.
understand that McDonald's was an aid in this
Hmm.
situation, but I'm saying, is McDonald's at fault, or are you, for your health situation?
So what you're saying that McDonald's aided me something?
I'm
Uh,
saying they played a role, but they can't take full accountability. You can't sit down, the owner and the manager of whatever McDonald's you were at, and say, like, I'm gonna sue you for my health situation right now. Because were
okay.
they the
Bec-
cause? That's my analogy, and like your
but
perspective
how does that
towards,
link?
the role immigrants no, the role immigrants play in prostitution, whatever,
Yeah.
illegal,
So you're
like,
saying that it's
violence.
not their
There
fault
might in
because
I'm not saying they're the
they put
cause
it
behind that
because
system.
what
No.
because they're not
That
allowed to
system's already
work.
in place.
So you're saying if they had the ability to work, if they had the ability to, let's say, the ability to get like free healthcare or whatever,
Yeah.
they would be better
I
citizens.
think that I think that it's the means that an individual is given that leads them to make those decisions. I mean, no person, or at least, I mean, that's a bit bold, but like, I'm asking you personally, right?
Hmm.
If I took away all your possible opportunities, I'm saying you have no opportunity to work, whether as a gardener, as a as a any blue collar job all the way up, you have no opportunity for that. You have no access to healthcare, education, no means of expanding yourself, your land. What are you gonna do to survive? You're gonna
Yeah,
start
no,
considering
no, no.
some
I
pretty
can, I can,
sketchy
I can
options, right?
understand that point, but the problem with it is because then if we do that, right, if we just allow them into a society, then what's I mean, we're not putting what are you saying that we should have quotas on the amount of people that can come in, but when they come in, they should be because that would make more sense if that's what you're saying.
I do think I do think
Because if we just
it can
allow
be
a
more
bunch of people
controlled.
in and just give them citizenship, give them access to, you know, voting rights
Yeah, there are
or
two
all these
sides of
other
this, right?
things.
If you There are two sides of this. If you literally stop the boats before they get to shore and tell them to turn back, right? Are you helping them? Are you providing them with a solution? Because, you know, in the majority of these cases, it's a life or death situation that they leave their home country, right?
Yeah.
So I think that
No,
countries,
but even
and I
so, I think
understand it's not as easier said than done. Like the amount of support that would have to go into all these different countries, but there's definitely there's definitely scope for it, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I can understand that. But yeah, but I was gonna say even the people who come in, I mean, they're typically not smart. They probably don't speak the same language. They probably not, you know, they're
Okay,
probably of
but
an older age. So even if they were to work, they would work these low end jobs and then they
what's your
would take the
criteria?
jobs. What do you mean? What's my criteria?
What's your criteria that's measuring smart? Like what
Smart
are
as
you
in, I
using
mean, they can't
that
work any
constitutes as
high-end
smart?
job. Smart as in they can't work any high-end job other than McDonald's, like or cleaning or something like that. But
They
these are
can't
they
or
can't because usually, typically, people who come in
or
that
they're
are
not
illegal,
allowed to.
both. Typically, people who come in who are illegal immigrants come from places like Africa, and they're not typically smart people from Africa. They're not educated people from Africa, or even
But
from
that's really
Asia, right, or the
bold.
Middle East. No, it's not bold. It's true.
That's a huge stereotypical no, that's a very huge
In general,
stereotypical
in general,
assumption, you
that is
know?
true. How is that an assumption? Because
Okay,
you
well,
even know that
the way
most
I
people,
see it, right?
the average Malawian, right, or average African, is probably not that educated because the government doesn't provide them with a proper education.
With the higher education. No,
Yeah,
I definitely say, look, there are differences here. We just have to clarify, like, in this discussion, you know, because it is a very sensitive topic. Like, smart is not
IQ,
is
I mean.
not the same
I'm talking
as
IQ,
higher
not lower IQ.
education,
There's
access to
actually been
higher
studies
education.
though. No, there's been studies, and they say that the people that usually the illegal immigrants, they do have a far lower IQ. Now, do I agree that people with higher economic status usually have higher IQs because of this? They have access to more information and whatnot. Yes, but people who come in, they don't speak the language. They're not willing. This is a
Mm.
big thing too. They're not willing to assimilate into society, and they have no affinity to the country. They have nothing. They don't like the country. They're just there to get their money and then send their remittances over back to wherever, whichever country they came from, or to their families back in Nigeria. Um, yeah, I mean they really add no benefit. And then when they come in, they take these low end jobs like daycare workers, or they take these low end jobs like McDonald's. And then what this does is it just oversaturates that market. And typically, university students, typically try work these jobs to gain access to just a little bit of skill here and there
But
that you can write on your
yeah, I
CV.
think it's
And these guys are willing
I
to work for
think
lower
in what you've
wages
said.
and they're willing to work longer hours. So it just,
No,
yeah.
but Mir, I think what you've said is like they might be. I definitely think there are good points behind some of the things you've said, but at the same time, I wanted to go back to just there's a lot of ideas behind this discussion, like, the whole topic of immigration. That's what I'm saying. Like, we take it from a huge blanket overview, like, for example, not smart, when, to be honest, like, even if you look at it as like a statistical standpoint, 50% have a low IQ according to whatever research. There's a lot more depth to that, like we don't ever want to put the effort or the amount of time it takes into understanding that. I mean, a discussion we should start off with before we even get to the point of the types of jobs in the economy that, immigrants have access to or not is
Yeah.
this term illegal immigration, right? I mean, a concept that's really, really important throughout South Africa is the principle that's throughout our law system. It's Ubuntu.
Mhm.
It's what Nelson Mandela enforced, like during, the apartheid, while fighting apartheid. Is just it's a traditional concept that I am because we are. It's a concept of like we cannot live in an individualistic society. We rely on each other, and we are because of, everyone around us. We have a we have a moral obligation to support our community regardless of who, ethnicity, race, gender, because you are because we are. Like that's our principle. And I think we are so quick to say illegal immigration, but I mean, I'd like to believe this, but the foundation behind law across any country, you know, any Western world, or Africa or Asia, wherever you're looking, is law is meant to support the fundamental principles of equality, freedom, basic human rights, right?
Mhm.
And we can go into this a bit deeper. It's like the natural approach. I think it's natural law, and
Yeah.
that's what Martin Luther King Jr. fought for, or Nelson Mandela fought for. It's the natural approach that law cannot be law if it is not supporting these principles. So a lot of these laws that are so quick to categorize immigration as illegal, and then we now associate it with the stereotypes. What do you consider with illegal? Crime. You consider it as bad, as taboo, but
Mhm.
it's only illegal because we've, I don't know, it's just, it shouldn't even be. The law behind this needs to be investigated and properly
I mean,
understood
they're
and
illegally
reconsidered.
coming into the country. That's why it's called illegal immigration.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but there needs to be then intervention into how do we now adjust this, because you're right, it is a growing problem.
Yeah.
But yet these laws in place however many decades ago, right,
Mhm.
the principles of these laws have not been changed to adapt to our changing society. Immigration is a growing problem, yet we
Yeah.
still consider it as illegal, when in all cases, the reason that these people are immigrating is because of lack of access to freedom, equality, basic human rights, which the law is meant to
I agree
support.
with you.
So why is there not a
No, 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 I
law
agree with you. But
aiding them?
that's in their country, right? You're saying in their country they face these issues.
No, I'm saying in every country. That's what I'm saying. In every
No,
country.
you're saying that the illegal immigrants they enter certain countries because in their country they face poverty, they face economical issues and
Yeah,
whatnot.
of course.
Okay, sure. That's fine, and I understand that point. But what I'm saying is, yeah, the U.S. is one of the biggest. It is the biggest empire in our generation. Yes, the UK colonized half the world, but that doesn't mean we owe all these countries something. We don't have to let all these people into our countries. Like it's not like we owe them something. Do you
I
understand what I'm
mean,
saying? Like why should we owe them
I
the
get
right
what
to
you're
all this
saying.
access? Like
I get
what have
what
they
you're
done for
saying.
us? I
Um,
mean, they come to our countries and then they cause crime and they cause mayhem and then we're meant to sit there and accept it. I think it's a bit ridiculous.
well, well, can I use, if you don't mind, this might be a bit like subjective. I'm using South Africa as an example a lot.
Mhm.
Um, but just as an example, okay?
Mhm.
So throughout colonization, we were colonized by the Dutch. Just for anyone viewing who doesn't really know, we were colonized by the Dutch and by the English. And then following with apartheid, which came from that colonization. And then
Yeah.
post apartheid is South Africa now. A lot of the problems now that South Africa is facing within our different social, socioeconomic areas, different socioeconomic, and a lot of it leading to, like we're saying, immigration. People within these lower classes not having access to jobs, to healthcare, education. A lot of those principles root from colonization, because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in many cases, and this is now not just to South Africa, what happened was colonization was not accepted, but was implemented into these natural states. And in many cases, well, South Africa is an extreme case, but the the natives to that country were segregated, were purposefully held back from being able to succeed.
Okay.
Like that was an intention. So now when you look at that, that was now we're talking decades, centuries ago. Those principles that were caused. Now I'm not saying by the modern European, they're not to blame, but by these states, by the UK, by wherever, by the Netherlands, by these states,
Yeah.
these root causes that were implemented that are still affecting South Africa today, you know, if they have any means of supporting South Africa, I think that that is a very sensitive discussion that needs to be had. Because the fact of the matter is, objectively, you caused the issue, you know,
Yeah, but
and
this whole idea
to
that
this
okay,
day,
they
our
caused it
political
and then
system
they
is fixing a problem they caused. No, it's true.
okay, no, it
Our
might be
political
true. It might
system
be
is
true, but then you look
repairing
at countries
something.
like India, right? Like, India was called a colonial of the British Empire, right? But India is doing tremendously well
Mm-hmm.
now. I mean, its population has gone up significantly, but it's I think the fastest growing large economy in the world. Yeah, it is the fastest growing large economy in the world. It's doing extremely well. It's going to be, people are saying, the next superpower. So is it really an excuse that okay, the UK has done this to us, or is it really the government that's corrupt and it's really the government's fault that they can't solve their own issues? Because if countries like India are doing
No,
so well,
definitely corruption. I mean, yeah, definitely corruption is a huge role in this, but
yeah,
I think what I'm trying to say is I'm not saying as a whole, if the country's not doing well, another country has to swoop in and fix their problems. Definitely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in the case that there's a lot of immigration from that country because of whatever struggles, right?
yeah.
There needs to be more of an in-depth conversation about, are these immigrants going to be supported if they're trying to come into our country?
Yeah, yeah, sure, I
That's what
understand
I'm
that.
trying to say.
But okay, yeah, I get that point, but it's like, okay, sure. Let's say that's true, and let's say okay, they might cause the crime because of economical perspectives and because they're forced to work those jobs. Let's say that's true, which I don't think it is. But let's say that's true, right? Even if it is,
Hmm.
I don't think the average American or the average British born citizen or the average European wants people who are unlike themselves to be there, right? I think that there's something innate in all humans where it's like if someone's similar to you, whether that's skin color, whether that's background like African for you specifically, maybe they grew up eating African food or they have the same parents, you can relate to them in a way and you get along more with them, right? And when you go to a hospital, when you
Mm,
go and all the doctors are just of a completely different race. And I'm not saying that innately a specific race of doctor is more inclined to hate on another race. What I'm saying is that they might understand the issue more and they might care more about you because they have the same values in terms of the way they grew up, right?
yeah.
And in doing so, they might
Okay.
want
So
to
you're
take
looking at
more
it
care
from a
of you.
more social.
Yeah, even from a
Mm,
social perspective, I don't think that people want these people here. I think that when you walk on the street or when you go to a bar and you're in the USA or you're in England, but it's like you're walking through the streets of England and you think you're in Mina Bazaar in Pakistan or India. I mean, nobody wants to feel like that. I mean, these countries have their cultures, they have their societies, and if people want to experience that, they can go over there and experience it. But to bring it to another country and to basically, in a sense, change the dynamic of the entire country, I think that's where the whole issue of immigration comes in. Because yeah, it's in small numbers now, but
mhm.
if we continue to allow it, I mean, the birth rates of the average white person is dropping, right? In all Western nations, and immigration is consistently increasing. So it's like, okay, the average native American, the people who built the country or the people who built the UK, they're going
It's
to be
ridiculous.
replaced, right?
Mm.
So I think
Yeah, I mean,
that's also another
it's
issue.
definitely a concern. No, I understand when you're looking at it from a more social standpoint as well, like how it
And I
influences
guarantee
culture.
you, and I guarantee you that even if a bunch of white people or a bunch of Indians were to move to Africa, the Africans would have a problem with it too. I guarantee they already have a problem with it. They have a problem with it now.
I mean, they did have a problem with it, right? Like, but this is what I'm trying to also kind of reinforce the idea of sometimes what you want as an individual needs to be needs to kind of be put bedside to what a separate individual needs, and that's that kind of that understanding of we're living in a group society. It's not just an individualistic society. And the fact is, the Western world is really built on the principles of individualism, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's the fact, right? Because a lot of what you're saying, it's a fair argument. Like, you know, if I'm living in my home, I used to live in the US, if I'm living in my home and I've been here and my family's been here for generations, and now there are a lot of things happening around me that are out of my control that I don't want. I'm obviously going to speak about them, but at the same time, it's the pure fact is in a lot of countries, immigration or just integration of different cultures happens on a wide scale that it becomes that new culture. You adapt, you move on, and you develop. And I think the faster we're able to understand that as a whole, like, you know, we are meant to continue to grow and expand and adapt. You know, certain cultures will be not replaced, but certain cultures will fall beside other ones growing. That's just the nature. That's how it's always been.
Yeah.
We can't, and the problem is we're trying to control that when it's just like it's in human nature that the way civilization grows develops. I mean, look at the Roman Empire. I'm sure that many of those countries that became a part of the Roman Empire, were they necessarily happy when the Roman Empire fell and they were taken over by Germanic, what is it, the tribes in Germany
Yeah.
in the 6th century? Like, that was definitely, but that's just the way civilization changes, and that led to a lot of good developments. So it's like we need to just, I think, be a bit more accommodating to the fact that things are changing.
Okay.
You might not want this guy from all the way in, I don't know, Southern America coming to live right next door to you, but like, so is life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand, and you're saying things are changing, but I mean, is that change good? That's the real question. I think we have to realize that change can
It
happen,
can be good.
but how can it
It
be good?
can be,
That's what I'm
but
saying. Because
I think
okay,
the way we view it, the way we accept
yeah,
it.
if we subjected immigration to picking people out for their skills. For example, that's what you can do with legal immigration. People are coming in on a passport. You can say, okay, this guy's educated in AI. We're going to take him in. People like Vivek Ramaswamy, people like Elon Musk, who's an immigrant. Those are the type of people you want in a
Mm.
country. But people who come in illegally, they're typically not smarter, and they typically don't have the qualities that these high scale individuals usually have, like Elon Musk
Okay, let
or
me ask you something.
yeah.
Because I think you're making a really good point, but then, like I said, there are a lot more levels to it, right? So I'm gonna give you just a hypothetical, or
Hmm.
not hypothetical, just a scenario of a couple immigrating from the Middle East into America. This was now in the maybe 1970s.
Yeah.
They have no higher education. They're working blue collar jobs, like you're saying. They're, I don't know if necessarily illegal immigrants, but you're saying they don't really have a contribution to society.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay, that's your argument. This same couple gave birth to Steve Jobs. And now
Yeah.
what's Steve Jobs' implication to that country? That's why I'm saying there's a lot more implication. We can't be so quick to say you have value, you don't have value, when in the long term,
Okay, no, I can
immig
understand that,
you
but
know,
I would even say that even if they do give birth to Steve Jobs, typically a country would want that, but I still think that it should be a native person who runs the country because, I mean, realistically, their ancestors are the ones that made the
Elon Musk
country.
is not a native person.
Yeah, he's not. I
And
don't
he's
think.
coming very close to running
Yeah, but I don't think he
America.
should.
Like,
I don't
he's
think he
right there
should.
next to
That's
Trump.
the thing. I disagree with that, and I
Hmm.
and I disagree with a lot of Trump's policies. I don't think Trump is the same man he used
Mm.
to be. And the reason Elon Musk is even so high in parliament right now is because he was Trump's biggest donor. I mean, he donated billions to Trump,
Yeah.
right? He donated billions. If Trump didn't do anything with him, then I think that would be a major problem. So,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, and I disagree with a lot of policies that no, I don't. I think Trump in his heart, I think he knows what he wants to do, but I think his administration disagrees with a lot of his his views, and they won't let his views pass, and neither would the judiciary. But I look, my main point is I think that it's about homogeneity at the end of the day, right? And I think that
Mm,
I don't think a white man should be the president of Malawi the same way I don't think
mm.
a Middle Eastern guy should be president of the United States, because it just, of course,
I
like
think, yeah,
unless there's like
but
generations behind it. But like a person who
yeah,
just
okay. I
like,
was just
you
about
get
to
what I
say,
mean? If it's like third generation
yeah, I
or
was gonna
second
say
generation, then
Obama.
it's fine. Yeah. But I think if it's like, okay, his parents just came in, gave birth to him illegally, and then now he's president of the United States, I think that's a bit ridiculous. I think that should not be allowed. But if it's someone who's like lived in the country for a while, their grandparents have paid
Mm.
taxes to build the country up, their parents have paid taxes to build the country up, then they become president, that would make more sense. But I feel like if they just come in on a boat, when you're illegal, you're not even paying taxes, right? By the way, you're just roaming around doing stupid shit, and then boom, you pop a kid out.
Careful.
You know what I mean? Pop a kid out, he becomes Steve Jobs. Your family didn't pay taxes, and then now this guy's prime minister, or
Yeah,
sorry, president. I think
but
that's
look,
just, it's a ridiculous
but look,
reality.
this is what I'm saying, that I'm saying that on a really general and watered down scale, what you're saying, a lot of people are gonna agree with. A lot of people are gonna agree with, just because I think that's the easiest thing to do. But what you've said about Steve Jobs, I'm only using this example because I found it so interesting, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the way I found about this is like there was a lot of discussion around like the controversy around this. I think it was Banksy who brought this up. It's like we're so quick to degrade, immigrants, and just stereotype the whole thing, when I'm saying there's a lot of depth to it. Like you're saying, don't come into the country, don't pay taxes, and then pop out a kid who just so happened to contribute to our society so much that it's impacting how I'm having this conversation right now. Like,
Hmm.
really? You're really going to sacrifice that over just because for maybe the 30 years they lived in that country, maybe less?
But
I don't know how they
couldn't
were
you
when
make
they
the
immigrated.
argument that if that does occur, right? It's not even the individual who does so, but the country that produces that. Because the country is the country is what provides the education for them to even become smart enough to
I
even
think,
take that
yeah,
position,
I
as
agree.
well as make the technology, as well
I
as get the job, and etc. Right? So if even if they were in another country, right, they probably wouldn't even become the man that they are, because that
Well,
country
no,
probably doesn't provide the same. No, because if someone grows up in
that's a debate of
Afghanistan
nature or nurture.
versus
That's
someone grows up in
nature or nurture,
America,
though, you know,
it is nature and nurture. But
because they
typically,
could.
someone who grows up in the West is typically has a higher IQ, typically has better opportunities. I mean, this is undeniable, right? And if they were the same person in another country, it would be much harder to succeed. That's why they call America the
I
land of
think,
opportunity.
I think it's definitely the land of opportunity. That's the ideal image we've all graced it with because of, I'd like to say, specific industries for starters. That's where it kind of got that catchphrase, land of dreams, whatever. But
Yeah.
what you're saying of different places having lower IQs is just completely false. That's like 100% not real. I mean, I can give so
No,
many
it is. I
examples.
mean, it's
Just for
obvious. It's an
starters,
obvious
the
fact.
concept of nursing. No. Did you know, like, the origin of nursing, which I hope you'd agree is something that's so important in today's society, that originated from Florence Nightingale, who was Italian and French. You know,
Hmm.
I might be getting that slightly wrong, but she's not from America. Just, I think, last year, if not the year before, I think it was last year, there's this huge thing on the news of this
Okay.
boy in Ethiopia who developed a soap that combats skin cancer. I mean, these are revolutionary ideas that had nothing to do with
Yeah,
the
but
Western world.
okay, no, but let me specify. When I'm talking about like immigrants, I'm typically talking about like immigrants outside the Western world, if that makes sense. And like
What do you mean?
outside Europe, the UK, and America. And and in addition to that, when you talk about like this Ethiopian guy creating the soap, he's a minority. Most immigrants aren't like that. Most immigrants are typically low IQ. Most immigrants do commit more crime, and most immigrants go into jobs which typically don't pay much, or like drugs or prostitution, etc. that we spoke about.
I get what you're saying,
It's a
but
minority.
these are
And
the
should we
these
bring
are
in
the
1 million immigrants, 999,000 of them are going to be criminals, and then the one is going to create a new invention? I mean, is it really worth it? I don't see
but
the I don't see
that's
the
why we have. I mean, that's why we hope that our legal systems, our medical systems, our education systems are there to help turn these minorities into majorities. It's with the means and the support that we give these people that you encourage this more in a society. There's so much research behind what you do in the early development stages of children's lives, how that affects people going forward. Now, when you take a country like Malawi, where almost every child, you know, in pre-K and elementary education has an education, and then they can't afford to get to higher education, and then we say, you want to use the term lower IQ. It's way more complex than that, because they haven't been given the means to succeed in that sense.
they haven't had the
So
means to
it's like,
succeed. Yeah, but I mean, typically, if let me just respond to a chat quickly. Grand Designer says, Mia, do you got any reaction to our discussion from last stream? That's a whole different concept. I don't even think she would understand it. It's really about conscription into the military. I mean, if you want to get into
oh,
that,
I mean,
yeah. I
what were
mean,
you guys talking about?
if you wanna ask some questions, Grand Designer, you go ahead, and she might give you her thoughts. But let me just answer that question
I can't
initially.
promise that. Yeah.
Go go sleep, bro. 10 to 9 a.m. I don't have a 9 a.m. Grand Designer says
Who's this?
medical and legal system are underfunded, and our education system is the same and badly designed because specifically it's not serving special needs kids like those on autism
Mm.
spectrum.
Yeah. So now, the approach I'm taking on this discussion here is the way you're categorizing immigrants, right?
Hmm.
It's the like just in the past few minutes, what you said is equivalent to saying something so rash as to say people with autism have a lower IQ. Well, whoa, you know what I mean? Like,
Okay, no, but it's true though because listen to me, listen
aid
to
the
me.
systems, aid the systems with more support to help them specifically. Autism, I
No,
know for a
but
fact,
we have to
is
live in generalities, right?
specific ways
No,
of
no, 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 no.
education.
Let me just answer this. The world works in generalities, right? When we fund
No.
education, yes, it does. The world works in generalities. When you're parking, okay, okay, when you're trying to park your car, in general, most of the parking spots, right, have white lines and nothing written there, and only a minority have disabled parking, right, or parking for disabled people or whatnot. That's because the world is built on generalities. The world is built on generalities. So, and that's how economics, even as a topic, as a social study, works. It works on generalities. Or if price goes up, demand will go down in general. Yeah, there might be one
Mm,
guy who might save, but in general, demand will go down if price goes up, right? Now, when you're
right.
talking about an autistic person, yeah, sure, maybe it's underfunded and whatnot, but I mean, let's be serious here. If it's underfunded for a reason, it's because typically those people are provide less value to society. Now,
Look,
from a societal perspective, they do. I mean, if everyone was autistic if you put all the autistic country and made it a country, right? Made some random country called like an autistic country just for autistic people, it would probably do less. I mean, it would probably be less
no, I
successful
disagree.
than a country that is typically people who are not autistic. How can
I,
you
I
dissuade that?
completely agree. I mean, we can research into this just to, you know, add more weight with it with facts if you'd like, but um I think there's definitely research behind individuals with autism, like the brains that comprehend creativity are way more developed than ours. Our brains are different in that sense. You know, it's not a. It's this is what I'm saying. It's the way we perceive things. It's not a deformity. It's a difference. Now, why are we so quick to segregate a difference and degrade it?
I'm not
Just
saying we
because.
have to degrade it, but I'm saying that
But that's what you're saying. A generality. You're saying in general they have. You're saying it's a lower it's someone with a lower IQ, or the way they're learning, it follows a different lower IQ. But I'm saying that the way they learn is different to ours. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lower IQ. I mean, I could argue that this person is way more creative than me just by their nature. And that, whether you value creativity over education, that holds a lot of weight and value.
yeah, sure, but that's if you value creativity over education. But when we're looking at it from a societal perspective, right, and what's valuable to society, right? Okay, let me
Creativity
just
is very valuable to society in terms
no,
of
wait, let me
our
just read what
cultures,
Grand Designer
music.
said. He said, "You are both not focused on an essential fact that there should be a system that filters those living inside and immigrants for being with pro-social values, for having certain openness to learning and different individuals." What are your thoughts on
Say
that?
that again.
You are both not focused on an essential fact that there should
Hmm.
be a system that filters those living inside and immigrants for being with pro-social values, for having a certain openness to learning and different individuals.
I 100%
Um,
agree. I agree. This is what I'm saying. I'm saying we shouldn't be so quick to stop immigration, or you know, to stereotype it so quickly. Rather, we should address our root systems and help adapt those to our adapting society. I agree.
yeah, well, no, but what I was saying before was that in terms of what's valuable to society, the most valuable subjects and the most difficult subjects, hence, and the most high-paying subjects are subjects like STEM, right? Math, science, or yeah, I mean economics falls under science, finance, like anything you know what I mean, STEM subjects, right? These are the most valuable to society. Why? Because they provide innovation, they provide you know, just growth overall for a country, right? In so many different ways. I mean, science, again, innovation, evolution, understanding things, you know, going to Mars, etc. These are the most valuable subjects. That's why you can't look at someone who's like more creatively has a high creatively IQ, a creative IQ, if that's even a thing, and be like, yeah,
Yeah.
he has a higher IQ than me in this sense, because no, there's something that's more valued in general, and that's what we have to look at. Grand Designer said, "Have you read the article I left you last stream?" Yeah, I read like half of it, bro. I read like half of it. Um, but it was a good article. It was a good article. It was a good article. Just ask some questions if you want. If you want to talk about military conscription, and I'm sure she can answer it. But what are your thoughts on what I just said?
Um. I mean, I don't disagree. Like economics, STEM, all of that does, like, it is very important. But
Yeah,
maybe I'm subjective. I'm someone who's very much involved with art, music. I do think creativity, whether it's not just specific to that. I mean, creativity is in everything, right? It is important, I think, in our development. But I wanted to touch back on something, if you don't mind.
yeah,
Like you said, our world kind of functions in generalizations. I
yeah.
think there's a huge risk behind that. And one thing that came to mind so quickly was just a question I want to ask you. Do you
hmm
think that the Aztec Empire was, a valuable civilization?
The Aztec Empire. So that was
Yeah.
practically the Mexicans, if I'm not wrong, right? Or the
Yep.
Hondurans and whatnot.
Like
Um,
modern day Mexico, around about that
I
area.
mean,
Yeah.
not really. It wasn't really a valuable empire. I think that
You
is.
wouldn't say so.
I mean,
The
what did they
Aztec
do? I mean,
Empire.
the Aztecs. I
Do you know
remember this
how
one.
advanced the Aztecs were compared to, I mean,
They
in
weren't
that
that
time,
advanced. I mean,
compared to
they literally got
Europe?
taken over. No, they weren't. The Spanish literally came to the Aztecs with guns, with guns, right? Like and took them over.
But this is what I'm trying to
They didn't have guns. They were using
point
swords
out.
and stuff.
This is what I'm trying to point out. These Eurocentric views of what constitutes as advanced or not. Did you know for a fact
Wait, let
the
me just read
Aztec
this chat.
Empire?
Grand Design says USSR was very focused on STEM and neglected others.
I like this grand design guy. Yeah, we seem to be agreeing on a few things.
Okay, but continue what you're saying.
I was trying to say, first off, this is a whole other topic that would be really interesting. The Aztec Empire was so far advanced. I mean, their medicine, the way they viewed medicine, the way, hierarchy in their system was way, way more advanced than Europe. But the one key thing, and this is really interesting, I think a lot of people should know about this, that the Spanish didn't conquer the Aztecs because they needed conquering. What happened was Cortez, yeah, the who led that Spanish invasion,
Mm-hmm.
um, came and had a discussion with the Aztec, the ruler at the time, I forget his name.
Yeah.
Um, but through communication, he had translators. I think he had two or three translators, and through communication, there was miscommunication that Cortez, at least what's documented, believed that the ruler of the Aztec Empire was welcoming him as the new authority, as the new ruler, right? When in
Yeah.
translation, what historians found out was the Aztec Empire viewed the opposite. He's like, these are lesser than, these are visitors who want to learn from our ways. That miscommunication led to Cortez conquering the Spanish Empire. That is what, so that generalization that Cortez made on his behalf, what I believe of just this is a native society. They're not Christian. They're thus for they are not an advanced civilization like ours. They need conquering. I mean, wow, the Spanish came and brought illnesses, brought all kinds of things that conquered a full on society that was far more advanced. So that's why
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
saying
but they
there's a
weren't
lot of
advanced
sensitivity.
militarily in comparison to the Spanish.
Just because, no, just because they didn't carry guns doesn't mean that they weren't. You could say just because they didn't ride horses, they weren't advanced. No, they had other means of transportation. I mean, the Aztecs invented popcorn, they invented so many things culturally, education, they had their own language system, they had their own calendar system. But just because it was different, it was viewed as lesser than. And a whole empire got taken down. I think that's a huge shame in that. And that's what
Yeah, but
happened all over the
if
world.
it was the most advanced empire and if it was the most successful empire, it wouldn't have been taken down so easily. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No,
And that's
I
why,
disagree.
how?
Plague. If I
Okay,
introduced
the
the
plague
plague
is like
to the
the plague.
UK.
You talking about the
No,
Black
if I
Plague?
brought the plague to the UK, like, whoa, are you gonna say, oh yeah, we didn't have a fighting chance, because you're more advanced than me, because I brought you a disease? Hell no. Like, that's what I'm saying. The Spanish introduced all kinds of illnesses that plagued. I think it was, if I'm not wrong, 20 million
Jono said
got
20.
taken down.
Jono said you're yapping. He said that to you. What do you have to say?
Ooh.
Jono 5431.
No, I'm making some good points. It's like generalizations are not good at all in any circumstance.
Yeah, but I think the world has to function on something, and generalizations are generalizations for a reason, right? When you look at like something like a family, right, and the nuclear family specifically, and you go all around the world and you see people and the way people live, right? And you're like, okay, you know, everywhere in the world, the nuclear family works. And you're like, okay, in general, the nuclear family should be the way that people that we should strive for, right? It's the thing that we should strive for. We shouldn't strive for like single mothers and whatnot, and that's a generalization, right? But it's a
Mm,
generalization for a reason, right? Because
okay.
when it's pattern recognition, it's clear pattern recognition. Okay, wait. Grand Designer says you fail seeing different aspects that made it very advanced, even if it did not have weapons as advanced as European invaders. No, bro, I get your
I like
point.
this guy.
No, I get your
Say
point.
that
I get
again.
your point.
No, I'm sorry. Say that again.
I'll read it for you again, just in case you didn't hear it.
Mm.
You fail seeing different aspects that made it advance, even if it did not have weapons as advanced as Europe invaders. But yeah, I understand that point, but the whole argument is generalizations here, right? And
But that's exactly what he's also pointing out, that this generalization of I think it's also, and I said this way early on in the podcast, in the stream, right? Is
mhm.
that when you're having this discussion, you need to keep in mind the beliefs of the person.
Jono just
You know,
said cacao. What do you have to say to that?
who is this person?
It's Jonathan. You know him. I think
Who's that?
oh, you don't know who that is.
Yeah, exactly. So let's continue. So what I'm saying is, you need to consider like the different beliefs of the person. So you, right, in just your own head, and that's not a wrong thing, but I think what you categorize as advanced is you're saying advanced military. What else?
I mean, not even advanced military, but just they have to be better than the other country. And this is why America has this like practically a cold war against China right now because they're trying to compete with them in terms of technology, in technological advancement and military capacity, right? Those are the two things that are going to keep a country safe and keep a country richer than another country and more powerful hence. So that those are the most important things in general. I mean, all this other stuff, like, yeah, it's important, but it's not as important.
But yeah, I mean, maybe
He
I'm being
says,
subjective here.
wait, he said that Grand Design said, I support not striving for nuclear family, nor single mothers. We should have a community, reared kids, not two parents for own kids. What do you think? Jono says, he might be a nobody, but he's a somebody. What do you have to say to that?
I agree. I agree. He is definitely a somebody. Yeah. Nobody said he's a nobody. Shame. Um. Sorry. Going back to what Grand Design said, you said not two parents.
Yeah, he says he does not support a striving nuclear family nor single mothers. He says we should have a community that prioritizes basically, or that's reared around kids, not two parents for own kids. I think he's saying you should
A
have a
society that
community to
prioritizes
raise
kids.
a
Mm.
community that raises it instead of just the two family members.
I 100% agree. I mean,
You
just
think
me
so?
culturally, I agree. I mean, just like from my own culture,
I
that's what
disagree.
we believe. That's we were raised by multiple family members. Like I'm not just raised by my
No,
parents.
I can agree with that, but he's saying he just disagrees with the nuclear family as a whole. I think, yeah, sure, they can be raised by a
Uh,
society,
um,
right?
I think
Behind the nuclear family, but like just to abolish the nuclear family system
no, yeah. I
is
think that's a bit extreme. I think the having a nuclear family, there's a lot of vulnerability that happens within a household, right? That it's a
Yo,
good
wait.
thing.
Sorry to interrupt you, but a new chatter here said, "Where wary dancer? What's going to keep a country safe is not more nuclear weapons." What do you have to say to that?
I agree. I agree.
No,
I
but
mean, what
okay,
happened with the
okay. You make your point.
wasn't there an event? I'm sorry, like I don't have a lot of facts on this,
Yeah.
but what happened with the near nuclear missile crisis between Cuba and America just by miscommunication that led to like you know immediate communication lines being emplaced in the round office. There was a whole thing about that where just simple miscommunication almost led to
Oh no, sorry.
nuclear invasion.
He said I did read it wrong. He said what's going to keep a country safe is more nuclear weapons.
Oh
And
my gosh, I
and
disagree.
And he just responded to your point saying, why not? Other countries will be afraid to attack. Exactly. I agree with that point. Other countries are going to be afraid of you if you have more nuclear power. You can use it as a threat, right? You say, "Oh, if I get
Uh,
invaded, I'm gonna bomb everyone." Hence, you probably will never get invaded because they're scared to, yeah, they're scared to get attacked. And SCD VMP says safest country in the world doesn't have nuclear weapons.
exactly. It's
But
like nuclear. No,
no, that's
because
not true.
wait,
The
there's
safest
another
countries
thing
in
here.
how do you determine what the safest countries in the world are? America has the most nuclear weapons,
Internally,
and no wait, America has the most nuclear weapons, and it's never had a ground invasion. It's never had a ground invasion, other than okay,
yeah, but
unless
I'd say
back in the
America is
day.
far from safe.
And huh? How is it far from safe?
America is far from safe. I mean, I'm saying this as a black individual. America is far from safe for a majority of different
No, but we're
reasons,
talking about
right?
world conflicts here. We're not talking about like, you know what I mean?
Okay, fine. If we're talking about world conflicts, fine. Like, just on a human psychological standpoint,
Yeah,
the
but okay,
more
Grand
power
Designer says
one
USA
has,
does not have as many nukes as Russia. Yeah, Aman says,
the
what does
more
that have to
power.
do with being black? What is your answer
I
to
was talking
that?
about internal safety within a state.
Okay, but yeah, USA doesn't have as many nukes as Russia, but Russia hasn't been ground like I mean, it's been ground invaded by Germany in the past, but since it's acquired nuclear weapons, I mean,
Mm,
really, no one's ever threatened to ground invade Russia because there's a threat of nuclear action, right? So they can use that
yeah.
for safety. So it is a form of safety. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but it might even contradict because like you don't think you we said this about a person, fair enough. We're not talking about people right now, but the more power an individual has, the more of a threat they are, right?
The more power an
Now,
individual has, the more of a threat they are.
yeah,
Hmm.
right? That's just the way our brains are engineered. So you don't think that this concept's applied to like nations on a whole scale. That if you're looking at, okay, yeah, Russia has so many like has so much nuclear strength, we don't know what will happen. In some circumstances people want to take preventative action, and now that's where conflict arises, that even before anything happens, the risk of the what if, because so many nuclear arms are there waiting, like, whatever VMPC, whatever, who, like, that's a good point. The safest country doesn't have nuclear arms.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a much broader discussion, but like I make this joke often. I'm like, when, or rather, God forbid, not when, if any nuclear invasions happen, I'm coming down here. I'm coming to like Malawi, and I'm coming into like I'm chilling at a mountain here because we're not at risk at all. Nothing is getting sent our way because there are no nuclear arms here, right? But if you're going to be chilling in America or Russia, you're going to be right there at the center of a war.
Yeah, but they're not at the center of the war because of their nuclear weapons. They're the center of the war because they're the most influential countries in the world. Grand Designer said, Russia has been invaded by Ukraine in Kursk for 5 months. So you are wrong, Mir. No, but they invaded first. Ukraine did not invade them first, and Ukraine is not taking back. Yeah, yeah, they've okay, yeah, sure, they've done a small ground invasion in Russia, but I mean, let's be serious here. I mean, Russia's going to take that back, and I mean, Ukraine's been invaded way more, and that's only if Russia feel threatened. I mean, it's not really a threat. It's been a small ground invasion in Kursk. It's not really been that big. Jono says, take black people as a metaphor. People fear black people, and they won't get attacked on the street by other races. It is the same way with countries. Where?
Yeah, okay. There's some
Hmm.
truth to that as a metaphor, right? Now, as a metaphor, because people fear black people, I'm using this as a metaphor, they're often they're often, I don't want to say attacked, but they're often assaulted in many circumstances as preventative measure, because you see someone walking on the street, you're thinking, yeah, they're going to be the first to act, let me step in. That
Hmm.
happens on a huge scale, not just in the US, in many countries, but like that's what I'm kind of saying, like with these nations, that we can try and remove the human element behind all of this and say, yeah, objectively this place has more nuclear arms, this is that, this, like, but the fact is, the human nature behind things is that we're so rash to these decisions because of the way we're just made up. We are meant to cut down what we fear. That's always been just in our genealogy. What is it? Genealogy.
Yeah. I mean,
So
me and Wary Dancer says no power equals safety. I agree with you, bro. Grand Design says Russian territory is still under Ukrainian control. That is in territory incorporated after the start of the Great Conflict in February 2022. Wary Dancer, as SCD says, Wary Dancer wrong. And he says, I know I'm joking. You can't rule with fear. Wary Dancer says, you can rule
I
with fear,
agree.
my Asian friend. It's not just ethical. So,
Okay.
SCDVMP says so many historical examples on how that did not work. We,
Exactly. No, this is what I'm trying to say. Power, and I think there's a lot, is a much simpler way of saying this, but power does not equal the right way of ruling, or like
not
this
the
person
right
said,
way.
safety.
No, okay, but when you're dealing with
It's the
countries,
fastest way.
when you're dealing with countries like Russia and China, who honestly, let's be honest, they want to conquer the world. If the USA, let's take the USA, let's say the USA wasn't a country. I guarantee you, the whole of Europe would have been invaded, and NATO would have completely collapsed under Russia or China. And the reason I say, well, and yeah, this is why countries like America and most of Europe are forced, they're forced to have nuclear weapons because they have to deal with countries like Russia and China who literally, yeah, they want world domination. I genuinely think that's what they want.
And
But
you know, I think mm, it's just I just disagree. Like,
how?
no, I just disagree. Like, if we're
But
not learning,
if the nuclear, okay, let's say the West completely destabilized all their nuclear
wait, just
weapons.
wait before we get there.
Okay.
I'm just thinking for a second of everything you said. But like, if we're not learning from these historical events, like, what are we doing? These past events need to inform our future decisions. Yeah, and like, this one viewer mentioned, like, too many circumstances in the past have shown us that invasion or firearms or military force or just power in a general term
Mm-hmm.
does not result in the best circumstance for everyone. Like, it doesn't work out always. Does it work out for that party? Maybe. Okay, yeah, they've just invaded a new territory. Great for them. But like, as a whole, like, how is that going to help us? Now, if you take this on a huge global scale, we just start shooting nuclear arms everywhere because this one is more powerful. This one, what are going to be the ripple effects to everybody else involved? Like, we're going to be sitting here with our arms crossed, like, yeah, great.
No, but that's the point. They will never go to war because they have the threat of nuclear power. I mean, Grand Designs, I mean, I read what you guys say, at least you guys are on the same page, but Grand Design says you should stop upholding unjust West for fear of Russia or China coming to invade you. My answer to you, Grand Designs, is it's true. If the West completely destabilized all their nukes, then they would have no then China or Russia would be free to invade. So what's the solution? What you
Do you
think they
think that
should
would
completely?
really happen, though? Do you really think that would happen, though?
I mean, why? Okay, tell me a scenario in which it wouldn't. You think Russia is just gonna be like, oh yeah, America destabilized their nukes. I'm just gonna destabilize mine. I mean, maybe Russia would do that, and maybe
But that's
Putin
what
would,
I'm
but
saying.
China wouldn't. Wait, Grand Design says it is unreasonable to think that they want to impose on you their values and economic system.
Mm. I'd argue that some of these countries want more power in different forms. I mean, I was gonna use the example of like Britain and the Commonwealth system. That's
Yeah.
power. That's a lot of power, but that has nothing to do with nuclear firearms, military strength. No, that's that's power through different like states, you know, coming together in this unionship under kind of your general crown. That's power, but that has nothing to do with the military, like, strength.
Yeah, but my point is that I mean Russia, I mean it's literally invading Ukraine. Yeah, maybe it's because of the NATO disagreement and whatnot, but I mean the Russia typically sees the West as a threat, right? So once they destabilize their weapons, I don't see why Russia
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't attack the West. China, China literally just wants to attack anything that was previously theirs. China would have literally attacked Taiwan right now if it wasn't for the USA. If that's what I'm saying, if the USA wasn't a country, China would have attacked Taiwan, right? Would have done all these things that they otherwise wouldn't have done, right? If the USA wasn't a country. So if the USA
Mm-hmm.
destabilized their whole military, right, or their whole nuclear arsenal, then what's stopping all these countries like China and Russia from doing all the heinous things that they initially want to do? Is what I'm saying.
Mm, I don't know. That's a really difficult question, but I think it's definitely more complex than that because I think, okay, if you look at this, right?
Hmm.
China functions in what? More so the secondary sector, right?
What do you mean secondary sector?
Like, not the primary sector, secondary, like in terms of manufacturing,
Oh,
industrial development.
typically, Russia's more like
Yeah.
the production.
No, not
No,
typically, yes.
Russia's
Um,
more the resources, and
no,
China's.
I'm saying China,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? I'm just explaining to any viewers there, right? Malawi, for example, is a primary sector, right? The USA is more, what's it called? Tertiary and quaternary sector. So maybe I'm thinking, right, from a political standpoint, what I want to do to expand my country is to move up a sector. I'm going to want to move from secondary to tertiary and quaternary, like the person that I'm quote unquote at arms with. But that doesn't come from invasion. That doesn't come from immediately, firing away and invade. Like, you know what I'm saying? That comes
I get
from
what you
other
mean.
means, like
I get what you mean.
expansion maybe, but invasion has no contribution to that whatsoever. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't fully agree that would happen.
Grand Designer says you are upholding what's best for individuals living in the West by supporting West oligarchs and fear of China and Russia invading. I mean,
Who?
Grand Designer says you are, he said that. He said you're upholding what's best for
Mm,
individuals living in the West by supporting Western oligarchs for fear of China and Russia invading.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to take the peaceful old standpoint
He's
more
saying that
so.
to me. He's saying that to me. Um,
Oh,
yeah, no, he's saying that I'm basically backing the West, right, and supporting their corrupt. You. Oh, sorry, you're not. Sorry, my bad. You are not upholding what's best for individuals living in the West by supporting Western oligarchs for fear of China and Russia invading. My bad. So, how am I not upholding what's best for the Western people? How is having a nu not how is destabilizing a nuclear arsenal? How is destabilizing their military the best answer, the best solution for the Western people? How is that the best solution? Because that puts them under immediate threat of their adversaries. Do you get what I'm saying?
mm,
I don't know. I think that it's a complex topic. It's definitely a complex
it
topic.
is.
Jono says react to Tweaker by Gello. What are your thoughts on that?
React to what?
Tweaker by Gello.
I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
Would you like to react to it?
No, no, thank you. Grand Design
Mm.
says you coping for unjust system, you make no principal point. He's saying the West is an unjust system in the beginning. This was his argument
I
yesterday
agree.
too, and he's saying that we
I
should
agree.
back it.
You should get this guy on
What's
the
your
stream. Are
solution
you
though?
sure?
What's your solution to it though? I mean, you keep saying that oh the West has all these problems, but you provide no solution. You just talk. Grand Design, you just show a Western
Sure.
supremacist view. I'm
No,
not a
look,
Western
chill, chill, chill.
supremacist.
At the beginning, the base point at solving all these issues are raising the questions. So I think that's a good point.
And you
That's a
know
good
what? Let's
start.
say I am a Western supremacist. What's wrong with liking your country and wanting what's best for your
Mm,
country
well,
or
for
your
starters, your Western oriented and
you are mad.
Eurocentric
I'm not
views
mad.
that you want to
He's call
impose.
he's calling me bad.
No,
So
I mean, I've known you
gun
for a long
designs.
time, right?
You know what, man?
I've known you for a long
We
time,
have too
and I
much.
just
We have
like
too
to
much
point
beef.
out you have a habit
There's
of
no habit.
taking your Western oriented or Eurocentric views and viewing that as the default, the better.
But there's no.
So, uh, in that
There's
case, yeah, I can have a lot to say. Like, you're wrong. Like, you're just flat out wrong. But like, I'm not gonna do that because we're gonna go around for 8 hours. Like, But that's the problem. The problem, and this is what led to this is what led to so many colonization, different invasions, all these different things that fair enough, that's a whole different topic of, did colonization actually aid the modern world? That's a different topic. But like it's this Western oriented perception that this is better and this isn't. Like, nah, that needs to stop. I think once we can stop that, and that's more of a social change, group way of thinking. Once we change that, then like okay, now we can get somewhere.
yeah. Johnny says, Lama ass off. Grandison, you sound like a dupe. Jono says, okay, Jono, mate is Western. Grand Design says, Matiz is a mat for unjust, dumb Western oligarchy. Ma The thing is, sure, okay, let's say I am. Let's say I am. I'm not even a mad. I said I want to. I disagree with the political system right now, and I want change to it. So I don't agree with it. But your answers are just so ridiculous. Destabilizing the military. I mean, like, it's so foolish. I've never heard anything like it in my life. I mean, in what scenario would that ever be a solution? You talk about the Western oligarchy now. We're talking about China and Russia and the threat of invasion, if in terms of military power. How is it? Do you understand what I'm saying? How is disabling the military ever going to solve anything?
I think it could actually solve a few things.
What would it solve? You
If
want
you
government
take
change, not system change.
no, wait. I'm
That's what
looking.
grand designer said.
Oh, I'm looking at this like now. I'm looking at this from a general term, okay,
Mm-hmm.
which maybe is a bit contradictory, but anyways, I'm looking at this from a more general standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take out military force or just violence, let's just be honest. If you take
Yeah.
violence out of any possible solution, you take that out of the criteria for how to solve something, you're going to have to become creative in other methods of solving things, right? This is what I was trying to say with the whole immigration crisis and everything, right? When you take that out as the most simple, which it is, the most simple and immediate solution to things, this is how we develop. This is how we find new and evolved solutions. Because how are we using the same methods used, as I'm going back to my whole Aztec point, like 1519? We're in 2025 now, and we're using the same kind of approaches, even though society's developed so much,
Yeah. Okay, I
right?
can understand
And
that.
that's the problem.
Oh, grand designer says, I would hope a general strike that poo appears and paralyzes military and police state in the West oligarchies. What are your thoughts on that? This is the person that's
You said
agreeing
that
with you.
what?
He's saying,
What
I
appears?
hope a general strike that poo appears and paralyzes military and police state in the Western oligarchies. He's
That
basically
paralyzes
he's
body.
opting for like Western, like the system should change. Oh, he said
Mm,
no poo. He said poo was okay. I would hope that it just appears. I
I
would
was
hope a
wondering,
general
yeah.
strike that appears. I would hope a general strike that appears and paralyzes military and police state in the West oligarchies. But yeah, I mean, bro, look, I mean, you keep saying all this stuff, right? And you're like, oh yeah, we just need to destabilize the military. And it's like you're not thinking about what could happen if, like, do you
I think
think
you should
some?
really get this guy on the stream. That would
I
definitely
literally
be
had a
interesting.
3 hour debate with him yesterday, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, and it was
I'm
basically
not
on
doing 3 hours,
military
yeah? I'm going
conscription.
to bed at some point.
No, obviously not. But yeah, no, I think his points. He just what he does is he says, okay, the West has a problem in the system. It needs systematic change, and you know what I mean. So he's basically saying, I'm saying no. It doesn't need systematic change. The parliament just needs to change. Like the leaders need to change, not
Mm.
the system, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And he's saying it needs systematic change. He's saying that your idea is, he said you need individual. Okay, this is what Grand Designer says. I said you need individual rights focused, Sully stem, focused. What is Sully stem? With many smaller states replacing ones you see.
Can I ask you something though? Because
Yeah,
this would be interesting to see what your opinion is.
yeah. Go ahead.
Mir,
Yeah. Go ahead.
is um you said like pretty much the legal what did you say needs to change? Not the system. You said what?
I said the leaders, not the system.
Okay. Do you think the system informs the leaders or the leaders inform the
Yeah, this is
system?
this is the same point he brought up. He said the system informs the leaders. What I said
I
is,
agree.
I said that the people are the ones with the sovereignty, not the system, right? And if the people
No.
decide that they want to elect a leader, the system cannot change that. If a majority of the population, because the people have more power than the system, if the majority of a
Mm.
population believes that they want to elect a certain type of leader, he will be elected, is my point, right? They can't do anything
When I
about it.
meant
And when he
system,
gets into power, he can. make changes. What do you mean by a system then?
No, I was just I yeah, I get what you're saying. I just meant more so like the type of leader that's enforced or stays in power, that kind of thing. Like the type of leader,
Mm-hmm.
does that, when I say inform, I meant more so like affect the system, or is it the other way around? Because when you think of that, then it's like, yeah, maybe the system does need to change in order for the leadership to change, right?
No, but
Not
I
just
think an
one. They're not
individual can
mutually
change the system
exclusive.
though. Like I think Trump's changed even the way Republicans were in the Trump's policies for the Republican Party are not the same as the average Republican, right? Because the person has the power over the system, is what I'm saying. You
Mm.
can change. I mean, yeah, you can still make change within a certain range limit. And I mean, okay, let's say we were to create a new system. This system has worked, right? The system you guys bring up, okay, the system needs to change, but there's no real solution to it. You're just saying, oh, the system needs to change, but change into what? You just point out problems without any solutions.
No,
Grand
but that's the
designer
that's the thing.
says,
If it was
you get a system who will murder leaders if they do not do what's best for people. But yeah, what are you gonna say? And your reaction to that?
okay, oh well, I don't know about murdering leaders. Look, that's a bit extreme. But I was just gonna say, like, if it was an easy question, right? This would have been solved a long time ago. Like these are really complex questions that might even take decades to solve. But we need to keep raising these problems, because if we just turn our back from them, then they're just gonna keep festering. So
Yeah,
sometimes, yeah, like we're just gonna point out problems until one day something clicks. Like that's just the nature of it.
yeah, that makes sense. Grand
Yeah.
designer says, but system filters candidates who end up in power. System approved candidates are only allowed in top positions. What are your thoughts on that?
Some filters.
So it
System
only,
approved.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, all my brain functions. I'm so tired right now. Say that again.
He's saying that basically the system filters the candidates who end up in power, so they choose who's even allowed to enter
Mm,
to run for president, for example, and the system only approves candidates who are allowed to be in top positions.
I
And
think that.
he said I misread. He said you got a system who is going to murder the leaders if they do
Oh.
what is best for the people. So he's saying if
Mm,
the leaders want to do what's best for the people, they will get murdered.
that's true. That's true everywhere. I think, like again, pointed out just because, I might be a bit biased, but I think a lot of different problems right now we can learn from, like what happened in 1999, and what happened with apartheid, because a lot of this, what we're saying, like you have a system that filters and prevents certain leaders from stepping into the roles that they should rightfully be in. Like that's exactly what happened. But then through protest, through strike, through a lot of intervention from the people, things can change. They're bound to change because, like I pointed out earlier, like our legal systems reflect the values of the society at the time. And when our society's values change, like, our political system has to adapt with it as well. Otherwise, who is that political system, who's that
Yeah,
for,
yeah,
if not
it
for,
does. It
yeah.
does. But I think he's pointing out that there's someone above the president. There's someone above the prime minister who actually runs the country. And
Of course.
if they
Oh,
don't do it,
definitely.
and if they don't run it in the way that they want it to be run, then they'll get murdered or they'll get something will happen to them and they'll get sick and die of a heart attack or something like that, is what he's saying. And do I agree that to a certain degree do I think that's true? Maybe, but how do we
Yeah,
solve
to a
this,
certain
right?
degree.
How do we solve this?
Mm,
Only if the people want like some sort of revolt and understand that this is an issue, then they can stand up and
mm,
say, okay, you know what, we're being run by corrupt leaders and whatnot. When you stand up
mm.
and we need to change the whole system, and maybe in that sense, sure, but there needs to be more significant evidence that this is actually happening for us to even believe it. You know, just saying it doesn't mean it's true.
It's it's hard because we're trying to change things and solve problems without changing the foundation that these problems were, like, came from.
Mm.
Like a conversation I have a lot of the time with people like someone I'm close to, like I'll ask him, if you were to become president of Malawi, what would you do? And a lot of the responses I've heard is just, yeah, replace the whole cabinet, just clean them out.
But
Because
that's what happens
how
when a
can
new
you?
a new president is elected, typically, especially from different sides of the political sphere. They typically do replace the whole cabinet.
Yeah, typically, but like I'm saying now, on a huge and broad scale, because you're right, the system does hold more weight than the leader. Now, would that be possible? Like, if I got elected, I'm just coming in and I'm changing up everything when that system holds more authority than me. That's the problem. That rarely ever happens. So the only circumstance that I can think of where that happened over time is just gradually you kind of swap out what's currently in place in the system for new change. Like there's no, I don't think there's a single country that would let a single leader, if not for a dictatorship, come and switch out a whole system. That's not possible.
Yeah, I
But if the
mean,
system needs to be changed to that extent, then it needs to happen over time.
and Grand Design says enough people do want complete system change. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you know what? I can
Well, a
see
lot of
that.
people want it, but
Yeah, but I mean, there's no real solution here. I mean, yeah, you're saying there's system change and whatnot, but this is the system.
mm,
The system that's in place today is what made these countries what they are today, especially in the West, right? They made these countries great and some of the most
mm,
powerful countries. These are the systems that did that. So then to say, okay, we need a complete system change that might not work even, that might be even worse, I think is ludicrous, right? I mean, if you're saying, yeah, there's a problem with the system, sure, and there needs to be certain changes here and there, but to just say we need to completely replace the entire system and then replace it into what? If you
yeah, I mean
provide a
that's
better
not feasible.
solution,
That's what I'm saying.
well, what's your solution? What's your solution?
Um,
No, he said he wrote in chat, you ignore my solution, so I'm asking him, what's your solution? I mean, I don't see what your solution is. Um, and if there was a better solution, then wouldn't it have already been enacted upon? You know what I mean?
mm.
But I
I
don't know.
mean, one idea, I mean, we're waiting for his response, is just integration of other political systems, other forms of leadership, kind of integrate them together. I think what's that? There's like a legal term for it, where different political systems inform other ones. That's how we kind of grow and learn from each other. That's what happened with a lot of Western Europe today. It was, I mean, I already said this, I don't want to repeat myself, but like um, the political systems, like the laws enforced by the Roman Empire, and then they were integrated with the different countries throughout Europe. Like that's kind of how we develop. We take the best elements from different sides and bring them together. This idea, this is what I'm saying. Like the problem, I think, in the Western world is like it's so nuclear focused on its own processes that those are the only ones that exist. That they're not even willing to learn from the other political systems around the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Grand Design says they are not great for individual rights. They pretend to uphold a number of individual rights.
What's this about?
He's talking about the system or the government. He's saying
Oh,
they pretend to uphold individual rights, but they don't actually do it.
oh.
He says you need a smaller scale system that responds to people need. Sorry, you need a smaller scale system that responds to people's needs, where
Mm.
is more control from the people at local level. He's saying where there is a more where the people have more control at a local level. He
Mm.
basically, do you think his idea would work? He's saying that we should all go into smaller, uh, turn into smaller countries, right? With like a small local society, and then have a small governor running that country.
Mm, I think I think there's some truth to that. I mean, like I said, if we look back at history, that's how we can kind of inform future decisions. I know for a fact that as different empires have expanded in the past, they kind of reached a pinnacle point where they were at their biggest, and they reached their peak, that they couldn't function at that scale anymore. That's how many of the empires broke down, right? Aztec Empire, Roman Empire.
Hmm.
Aztec obviously is a bit different, but I think the problem with that now, if you're saying that the people, right, everyday person has so much autonomy that they can now inform the political system. That's a huge risk because, just because everyone can speak doesn't mean everyone should. Like that's a pure fact. Now, if you want to
Yeah, I
give
mean, to expand on
everyone
his
power,
solution, he's basically saying, he just said in chat, he said, so limit a state to a maximum of 2 million adults. You'd get 30 countries instead of the UK, where 4 countries live under one system.
it's very specific.
Yeah, well, bro, I mean, that's completely unrealistic and that's just never gonna happen. I mean, it's an unrealistic solution. Maybe it would work, but I mean, in it wouldn't work
I mean,
in
you could look at variations of that, right? You could, I think the concept, maybe, maybe the numbers are a bit very specific, but like,
yeah, but to even do the people even want that? Do you think the people generally want that?
but this is the thing, yeah. When you're, when you're looking at drastic change for the greater good of a civilization, you need to table side wants for needs. This is the same thing with immigration, same thing, with many of the things we've discussed.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to table side what we want and what we'd prefer for what we need because obviously there's gonna be conflicts, but like, look at the US right now. There's a lot of things people want that it's working up. But is that the best in the long term? Mm, I'm not sure. Like giving a 6-year-old the right to choose their gender at the time, I don't know. Just doesn't seem like a great idea
Yeah. Yeah.
for a bunch of reasons. I can be supported with facts, but like, no, that's what people wanted. But
Yeah. I mean, he said you need principles based on he said you need principles based on a system, not an oligarch, from a nation-based system. So I think he's saying that the people should create the system, not the oligarch or not
mm,
the government. I mean,
I agree.
that could work. Yeah, that could definitely
Yeah,
work.
and that's the case in
But
many
the people
places
need to
actually.
stand
So
up
yeah.
though. But the people need to stand up. I mean, that's the whole argument. And
Yeah, but
yeah.
I think the other side of the argument, I 100% agree, but other side is sometimes they can't be stand up. They can't stand up because they're being held down, right, by that same system. Like
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's
it's
just,
like a
yeah,
lose-lose. And
yeah.
yeah, it is a
It's this
lose-lose.
loop that it's very hard to escape because you're trying to do something but you're not able to. You're being told you can't, but it's just you're not allowed to. Like it's very complicated.
He says,
Very.
my principles are respect individual rights. This is above a nation's rights and above a state's rights to intrude in personal lives.
Mm.
Yeah, you know what? I do agree with you
I
there.
mean, but yeah, that is human rights. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
fully agree.
No, no, I do agree with that. But he says free speech, share resources, empower autonomy of individuals. To a degree, I agree.
Yeah,
To a degree, I do agree
yeah,
with you there. But yeah, bro. Just to sum up, because I think we're gonna close out there, because it has been two
yeah,
hours, and
yeah. I
no,
was just about to say,
no, I did tell her that it would be only 2 hours, so we will close out there.
yeah.
But any last thoughts or last things you want to say before we
Me?
end? Yeah, you.
Um, no, I think these are really good discussions. I think these discussions need to be had more often, and I think I don't know where I heard this from, but like it's just this might be a generalization, but a problem is that are not enough people are interested in reading about history nowadays.
Hmm.
And like I said, history is the only thing that can inform our future decisions. So I think a lot more people need to look into what's happened in past political systems, legal systems, everything we've talked about. So these conversations can happen a bit more often.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that's a good way
Mm,
to end it. I mean, let me say a last word. I thank you guys for tuning in. Um, great stream, great discussions. I think from I think we both appreciate it, and
yeah.
yeah, guys, much appreciated. Thank you for watching, and yeah, we'll see you next time. We'll be on tomorrow, So see you then, man. Take care till then, and peace.